Prince Louis has reportedly been quietly pulled from school after a deeply emotional breakdown inside the royal household. Across Britain, the reaction was immediate. The nation seemed to pause when Buckingham Palace released a statement that no one had expected. This was not an update about King Charles III. It was not about Catherine, Princess of Wales. It was not even centered on the broader questions surrounding the monarchy's future. Instead, it was about 7-year-old Prince Louis of Wales. And that alone raised a question that instantly gripped the public. Why would the palace issue such an unusually emotional statement about the fourth in line to the throne? And perhaps even more importantly, why now? After months of carefully managed silence surrounding royal health crises, the sudden shift in tone felt impossible to ignore. Within minutes, major television networks interrupted regular programming. Royal correspondents, usually so measured and composed, spoke with a visible caution that hinted this was not business as usual. The wording of the palace statement felt different this time. It acknowledged a personal matter involving Prince Louis and thanked the public for its understanding and compassion. That tone alone was historic. The monarchy does not often speak in such personal, emotionally weighted language unless something significant has changed behind palace walls. This was not framed as a minor scheduling adjustment. It was not presented as a routine update. It carried weight, it carried urgency, and above all, it carried a kind of quiet finality. And that is why this matters. For the past year, the British royal family has been battling overlapping storms: the King's diagnosis, Catherine's prolonged recovery, and growing public speculation about the family's internal stability. Through it all, the Wales children were presented as symbols of continuity, symbols of calm, strength, and normality. But now, suddenly, the youngest child had become the center of concern. And when the youngest member of a royal line is unexpectedly shielded from public view, history teaches us that something deeper may be unfolding behind the scenes. Insiders would later suggest that even some senior staff had received no advance briefing. There were no controlled leaks, no carefully staged soft launches to trusted press, no familiar royal choreography. The statement came directly from the palace press office without the usual build-up. That in itself was highly unusual. Speculation ignited almost instantly. Was it medical? Was it emotional? Was it security-related? The palace did not clarify, and that silence created a vacuum. Inside homes across Britain, television stayed on longer than usual. Social media filled with messages of concern and confusion. Even people who rarely followed royal news found themselves unsettled. Prince Louis had become a beloved figure in the public imagination, the little boy whose balcony expressions and spontaneous energy had brought levity to national ceremonies. But now the mood had shifted. The story was no longer framed by laughter. It was framed by worry. And yet there was one important detail that many people overlooked. Shortly after the announcement, Kensington Palace reportedly contacted Prince Louis' school quietly and directly. Teachers were informed of temporary changes, planned family appearances were postponed, certain private engagements were cancelled. The ripple effect was immediate and unmistakable. Something inside Adelaide Cottage had changed. And while commentators rushed to debate optics, succession, and royal image, those believed to be closest to the family described something far more human: a child reacting to months of uncertainty, illness, and emotional strain within his home. Sources suggested that the emotional weight of illness within the household, first the king, then Catherine, had created a kind of tension that even adults were struggling to process. Now imagine what that must feel like for a 7-year-old. Especially a 7-year-old raised in an environment where public composure is expected almost from birth. The palace, however, remained careful. The statement emphasized privacy. It did not invite scrutiny, and perhaps predictably that only intensified it, because when a monarchy known for restraint suddenly chooses vulnerability, it signals that a line has been crossed. So what exactly was Prince Louis experiencing that required this level of protection? Why was he suddenly being withdrawn from public life? And why did this announcement feel less like protocol and more like a family nearing its emotional limit? Within hours, cameras gathered outside palace gates. Reporters waited for clarification. None came, at least not immediately. Then Prince William stepped forward. And what he reportedly revealed next changed the entire narrative. When Prince William, Prince of Wales, appeared before cameras, there was no GR. and platform waiting for him. No ceremonial backdrop, no formal royal staging. It was simply a father standing in front of a world that had already decided this must be a constitutional story, when in reality it was something far more personal. For several seconds, he said nothing. And somehow, that silence spoke louder than any prepared statement could have. Then he began. Louis has been struggling. Not diplomatic language. Not institutional phrasing. Not the carefully filtered vocabulary of monarchy. Just one painfully human word, struggling. That word lingered in the air. Because in that moment, William was not speaking as the heir to the throne. He was speaking as a father trying to describe something fragile without exposing it to further harm, and that distinction mattered. It marked a rare and deeply revealing departure from royal composure. He reportedly described restless nights, unexpected questions, a brightness in his son that had begun to dim. And that is where the story changed. For months, public attention had been fixed on the health of King Charles and the recovery of Catherine, Princess of Wales. But William's remarks suggested something few had fully considered, how those uncertainties were being absorbed by the youngest child in the home. Louis, William explained, had been trying to understand illness, absence, and fear without the emotional tools to process any of it. Then came the moment that reportedly left even seasoned royal correspondents shaken. William repeated a quiet question his son had once asked him. "Is Mummy going to leave like Grandpa?" 8 words. And suddenly this was no longer a story about succession, image, or palace messaging. It became a story about a child trying to make sense of loss before he was old enough to understand it. That question changed everything. It revealed not mischief, not dramatics, not some passing emotional spell, but genuine confusion, fear, and vulnerability. It showed a little boy trying to connect adult silence with the only language he had for grief. And William admitted something else, something remarkably candid for a future king. He reportedly said he had not immediately recognized the warning signs, that while balancing royal obligations, public reassurance, and a household under pressure, he had missed how deeply those changes were affecting his son. "I was trying to hold everything together," he said, "and I didn't see what was slipping through." There was no attempt to embellish it, no dramatic performance, just something much rarer: accountability. And that raised an uncomfortable but important question. If the heir to the throne can overlook emotional distress inside his own home while trying to manage public crisis, what does that tell us about the pressure inside those walls? William reportedly described mood swings, emotional withdrawal, and moments when Louis would suddenly shut down completely. A child once known for his spontaneity and joy was now moving through parts of daily life with visible hesitation. This was not rebellion. It was not bad behavior. It was not childish stubbornness. It was confusion. And then William made what many saw as a direct appeal, not as a senior royal, but as a father asking the public and the media for restraint. He urged people to treat Louis with the same compassion they had extended during Catherine's recovery. And then came one simple sentence that cut through all the noise. "He's just a boy." That line reframed the entire situation. Because behind every public appearance, behind every carefully photographed moment, behind every royal balcony wave, there is still a child living through circumstances he did not choose, under pressure he cannot possibly understand. But as William stepped away from the microphones, one question still remained. If matters had already reached the point of public acknowledgement, then what had happened privately to force that admission? Because what was unfolding inside Adelaide Cottage was no longer just emotional strain. It was becoming a decision. And that decision would alter Prince Louis's daily life almost overnight. For weeks, the Wales household had tried to preserve a sense of normality. Morning routines continued. School uniforms were pressed. Schedules were maintained. Public appearances were timed carefully, as though steadiness itself could become a form of reassurance. From the outside, the image still held: smiles during walkabouts, controlled photographs, a family enduring hardship with grace and dignity. But inside Adelaide Cottage, something quieter and much more delicate was unfolding. According to those said to be familiar with the situation, Prince Louis's teachers had begun to notice subtle but meaningful changes. A child once known for energy, humor, and spontaneity had become unusually subdued. Participation reportedly declined. Focus drifted. At times, he seemed distracted by something far beyond the classroom. At first, the change may have been attributed to adjustment. After all, children respond to family stress in different ways. That alone would not necessarily have caused alarm. But then came the moment several insiders would later describe as the tipping point. During an ordinary classroom activity, a classmate allegedly asked a simple question, the kind children ask innocently, without understanding the emotional weight behind it. "Is your mum still sick?" By all accounts, the room went quiet. Prince Louis did not answer, not immediately, not playfully, not defensively. He simply shut down. Teachers reportedly noticed the shift instantly. His eyes lowered, his posture tightened, and though the classroom moved on, he emotionally did not. That afternoon, he remained withdrawn. When he returned home, he reportedly refused dinner. And by the following morning, he did not want to go back. This was not defiance. It was overwhelm. And that detail matters deeply. Because for a child raised in extraordinary public visibility, school is supposed to be the protected space, the one environment where titles soften, expectations loosen, and a sense of ordinary life becomes possible. When even that space starts to feel emotionally unsafe, the foundation begins to shake. And the palace, it seems, understood that. Within days, quiet conversations reportedly began, meetings between William and Catherine, discussions with trusted advisors, consultations involving educational specialists and those capable of guiding the family through delicate decisions. But there was hesitation. How would the headlines respond? How quickly would concern turn into speculation? How long would it take before private pain became public theater? The monarchy has always been wary of exposing children to narratives they cannot control, and yet the reality inside the household was becoming harder to ignore. Princess Charlotte, often described as mature beyond her years and deeply protective of her younger brother, was also reportedly feeling the strain. Some accounts suggested she had been trying in small ways to anchor him, redirecting conversations, changing the subject when illness came up, attempting to shield him with the kind of instinctive tenderness only a sibling can offer. But even she, according to staff accounts, eventually reached a breaking point. One evening, Charlotte reportedly became tearful while speaking with her nanny and said, "He doesn't understand why she's not getting better." That sentence, according to some reports, deeply affected Catherine. Because in that moment, the emotional strain was no longer isolated to one child. It became painfully clear that both children were trying to manage fears that even the adults around them were still struggling to navigate. Behind closed doors, the discussion shifted. No longer from optics to concern, but from concern to intervention. Therapy was mentioned. Temporary withdrawal from school was discussed. Privacy safeguards were reviewed. The goal was no longer simply maintaining appearances, it was emotional protection. And then, without advance notice, Prince Louis did not return to class. Parents received little explanation, faculty were reportedly asked for discretion, no public timeline was given. In royal terms, the decision was swift, quiet, and decisive. And yet that only deepened the public intrigue. Because while the world continued seeing composed photographs and controlled imagery, the family had just made one of its most personal and emotionally revealing decisions in years. So what does it take for a future king to place emotional stability above optics? What private conversations finally pushed that line to be crossed? Because this was never just about one classroom question. It was about the recognition that something fragile needed immediate protection. And even then, uncertainty remained. Would this be temporary? Or was this the beginning of something much larger, a broader shift in how the modern monarchy protects its youngest generation? The decision to withdraw Prince Louis from school was not impulsive. It was reportedly the result of a deeply private meeting, one insiders have described as among the most emotionally difficult conversations William and Catherine have faced as parents. On the surface, monarchy depends on projection, endurance, continuity, and stability through turbulence. But inside Adelaide Cottage, the conversation was not about the institution. It was about a 7-year-old boy who no longer felt secure in what was supposed to be the most ordinary part of his life. Educational advisors are said to have presented several options: reduced attendance, temporary private tutoring, structured emotional support, counseling, and a more carefully controlled routine. None of those options were dramatic. None were unprecedented. But within a royal family traditionally cautious about showing emotional vulnerability, even a quiet interventi carries enormous symbolic meaning. And that is where the deeper tension lies. For years, the modern monarchy has worked hard to appear more relatable. There have been open conversations about grief, campaigns around mental health, and repeated public appeals encouraging emotional honesty. Prince William himself has spoken often about those causes. But when the issue becomes personal, when it reaches your own child, everything changes. Because once something is acknowledged publicly, it can never return to anonymity. Sources suggest that Catherine, while still managing her own recovery, was the first to push for an immediate change, not out of panic, but out of maternal instinct. She reportedly feared that Louis was internalizing adult fear, filling silence with darker possibilities, and carrying emotional burdens far too heavy for his age. And children do that. When adults fall silent, children often imagine something even worse than the truth. William, torn between duty and fatherhood, was reportedly forced to confront a difficult realization: protecting the institution could not come at the cost of protecting his son. So the decision was made, quietly, deliberately, and without spectacle. Prince Louis would step back. No detailed explanation. No official timetable. Just space. Just protection. Just room for a child to breathe. But beneath that decision remains a far more significant question. Is this simply a temporary pause? Or is it evidence of a generational shift inside the royal household itself? Historically, royal children were expected to adapt, to absorb scrutiny, to withstand pressure, to carry themselves with composure regardless of what they felt privately. This moment challenges that tradition. It suggests that emotional well-being may now carry greater weight than inherited expectations of silence and endurance. And if that shift truly takes hold, it may represent one of the most subtle and most important evolutions in the modern monarchy. There is another layer to this story that few have fully addressed. By speaking publicly about Louis's struggle, William did something unusual. He reframed vulnerability as strength. He did not allow speculation to define the narrative first. He stepped in before rumor could do its worst. That was not weakness. That was strategy mixed with humanity. But control, of course, is never absolute. The public continues to watch. Commentators continue to debate. Analysts question whether greater transparency invites greater intrusion. Some argue that honesty humanizes the monarchy. Others warn it may open doors that cannot easily be closed again. Inside the palace, however, the focus appears far simpler. Restore routine. Rebuild confidence. Allow childhood to continue without being swallowed by adult crisis. And still, the uncertainty lingers. Will Louis eventually return to school quietly, with no formal announcement? Will this period shape how he understands public life as he grows older? Will this become a defining chapter in how the next generation of royals is raised beneath constant scrutiny? Because sometimes the most consequential royal decisions are not constitutional at all. Sometimes they are parental. And this one may echo far longer than anyone expected. In the end, this story was never just about a temporary withdrawal from school. It was about what happens when public duty collides with private fear. When the image of resilience meets the reality of childhood vulnerability. When centuries of royal tradition confront something profoundly simple and human, a child in distress. For years, the British monarchy has managed crisis through careful messaging, controlled appearances, and measured silence. But this moment, centered on Prince Louis, seemed to reveal something different. It revealed that even inside centuries-old institutions, emotional strain still reaches the youngest members. Titles do not insulate a child from fear. Tradition does not prevent uncertainty from entering a family home. And public image cannot erase the private emotional cost of illness, absence, and unanswered questions. The unanswered questions remain powerful. Will this experience quietly redefine how royal children are protected? Will it influence how openly future heirs discuss emotional well-being behind palace walls? Or with time, will the system slowly return to what it has always been, composed, careful, and difficult to read? What feels clear, however, is this. The most meaningful change may not be unfolding in public at all. It may be happening in small daily choices, in the decisions of two parents who have concluded that, at least for now, protection means stepping back, speaking carefully, and choosing a child's emotional safety over public expectation. And sometimes, the future of an institution does not begin in parliament, in ceremony, or in constitutional reform. Sometimes it begins with how that institution chooses to protect a child. If you enjoy in-depth coverage of the stories shaping celebrity culture, public figures, and the world of modern royalty, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you stay connected for whatever story unfolds next.